It's like even something little like that matters to me right now. That's how pathetic I am. And so we sat down and he said, you know what? Basically, I can tell you're having a tough time. Everybody can around you. And, people are pulling for you, he said. And that made me feel good. And then he said, all you need is just to catch a break. You just need to catch a break. And it's going to come. And that gave me the hope that I needed at that time. Like if he thinks I'm going to catch a break, maybe I will catch a break. My mindset shifted at that point. And that was everything.
Welcome back to the AudioLife Podcast, where we tell your story in your voice. I'm your host again today, Carrie Purcell, and today I'm joined by DaveTowle. Now, if you are an avid cycling fan, you may just recognize the voice you're about to hear. David has been an announcer and presenter in the world of cycling in a whole facet of opportunities, but you may know him from the American Cycling Report. You may have also heard him announcing races, seen him on television, or other guest appearances, of course, including podcasts. But today, I want to take you behind the scenes and learn a little bit more about David. So what helped to form and inform who he is today, how he entered the world of cycling, how his career and podcast took shape, and I'm guessing probably some of the lessons along the way. David, thanks for joining us today.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you.
Good. And we love to hear your voice. So it's exciting to have you on the other side of the podcast.
Yeah, cycling is a niche sport. It's had some hate. I've been doing announcing at what I would say the highest level in North America for about 25 years, going back to the Tour de Georgia. And that's Lance Armstrong era. Lance saved that race back in 2004. So that's getting to be a while ago, a little long in the tooth now. But I do recognize, too, that there events like Tour of California and Tour de Georgia don't even exist now. So, there's ups and downs for sports, cycling seems to have more of a dramatic flow there. But thanks a lot for that nice intro.
Yeah, of course. And, we are going to talk more about cycling. It'll be inevitable as we get through that 25 years of your life and what led you there. But I often like to start with a question that goes way back. So I often start the podcast with asking you to tell us where you were born and if there is a story behind your name.
I should be doing something like that with my own podcast, to tell you the truth. That's an awesome way to start. So born in Niskayuna, New York. My dad and mom were newly married, and this is 1965 that they were there. I'm born in March of 66. Dad is working for GE. He's just got his electrical engineering degree. Mom is yet to get her master's. We bounced around from university towns and lived in Norway for a few years. But my family was really working, I would say, in education at that point. And GE is based in upstate, or really in that time, the 60s, upstate New York was their home ground, I would say. I don't know if my dad even really enjoyed that job or living there. We were only there for maybe a year, I'm going to guess. And Niskayuna, it's like Schenectady or near Albany, kind of. I've been back as an adult, and I wouldn't say I was underwhelmed. It was exactly what I thought it would be, a small, quiet New York upstate community. They're doing okay. My dad's mom is from Ukraine, and she was an opera singer, and she emigrated to the United States in the 30s. And had a really rough life and ended up in Michigan, where she met my dad's dad. And he's an American through and through, a Joe American kind of guy, from what I understand. Sounded like a happy-go-lucky, really friendly person, but maybe not so serious. And they had my dad. And so the name, though, I have never fully understood. It's not my mom's last name, right? So when she emigrated, or my grandma's last name. And so I've never fully understood the roots. And I know my dad has got a lot of genealogy stuff, and with 23andMe and all of that, he's been looking into it more, and I'll get more up to speed on that. I care more about that now at this point in my life. But so I've always assumed that there's some mistake or something because the spelling is easily mispronounced. I mean, everybody does. I get it. I expect you to tell you the truth. And so it sort of becomes this thing where I wonder why they didn't just phonetically spell it out or what the deal was. So if we ever meet again, I'll have an answer for you.
Yeah, that sounds good. I will hold you to it because there's something behind names, right? Whether it's the genetic or whether it's the genealogy or whether it is a spelling that somebody chose along the way or adapted
the Ellis
along the way
Island
or means
thing,
something
like
else.
you said.
So we'll find. Yeah, exactly. So we'll find out. You'll find out. You'll let us know. So I'm going to ask you a question, and we aren't going to cover the full answer in one question. But you've spent a very short portion of your early life in small town New York. You're in Fort Collins today, joining us from Colorado. Where did you go after New York, or where did your family go after New York?
Yeah. So, to be fair, like I was saying, like New York, I don't even have a memory of that, right? We're talking about up to 1 year old. And then it's funny, this just came up very recently. My first memory, that's maybe not a bad question to add in too, for if you want to have a whole book of questions. But my very first memory is being in Denmark. There's a famous statue there of a mermaid, and they historically, through protests through the decades, have cut that head off of the statue to symbolize whatever the protest thing might be at that time. And so my first memory is being at that statue, and very minor childhood trauma of maybe getting on the wrong bus or something like that happening there. But so that was because we were living in Norway at the time, because my dad was a professor at University of Oslo, and we spent 2 years living there. So if I'm going to give you the quick rundown, as quick as well as I can remember, it would have been from New York. I don't even know where we went at that point, because I picked it up as like a 6-year-old in Oslo. And then we came back and lived in Madison, Wisconsin. And then we lived in West Lafayette, Indiana, because it was University of Wisconsin. And then Purdue were the schools that my dad was teaching at. And then finally, around 12 years old, we moved to Colorado, and that was for good. My dad worked for the United States Geological Survey. My mom worked for the Solar Energy Research Institute. This is Jimmy Carter era. So they were both in that sort of, working in government, for one, which has its ups and its downs. And they both, though, loved Colorado. Our family moved to Boulder. Boulder's an incredible place. I'll never, ever undervalue how lucky I was to grow up in Boulder in the 70s and the 80s. And it was a magical time, especially as a kid. Because we didn't do drugs or know anything about drugs, or, that was a pretty serious world, I think, going on down there with the adults. But we were just kids letting it rip in some of the best outdoor community vibes you could find at that time. So, yes. And that's why I'm in bike. I mean, honestly, if you've read Malcolm Gladwell, this would be the outlier story where my parents get divorced. My mom moves in basically next door to two people: the events program council director, the guy who had booked the Rolling Stones to play at the university, was our next door neighbor. And on the other side was the director of the biggest bicycle race in North America. Those were the two neighbors that we had. And they both heavily impacted the rest of my life, for sure. And that's who you're around, right? At 12, 13, 14 years old, we were hanging around these guys that were major players in entertainment industry.
It's interesting because one of my next questions is how the times you grew up in influenced who you are today. And I think it's the times and the place and the people. So I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit.
Well, sure. I mean, again, I feel lucky. If you look at it now, kids, there's so much distraction. How do you even find your passion? I thought this Olympics really helped highlight that with, I think, a bunch of different athletes in the positive sense of, look, you got to put the phone down. You got to find your own joy and just having a great skate. And you cannot look and see how many people liked your skate on your phone afterwards. And we're all victims of wanting to get that kind of feedback. When I was a kid, the feedback was immediate and raw and unfiltered. And if you weren't good at something, there was no trophies for participation. And only the strong survived in that schoolyard. And it was ugly at times, but it was survival of the fittest, animal instincts and all those things that you kind of need to have, it turns out, in life.
Yeah.
And so, it wasn't always pretty, but man, it was cool. And if you look at things like, I'm not Forrest Gump or Zelig or but I've been in some rooms because of what I do, I've been able to hang out with Robin Williams. I was on stage with him for half an hour at a charity presentation for a cycling. He loved bikes. See, it always comes back to that. My life, the people that I Patrick Dempsey is in my phone because Patrick loves cycling and he came to tour California for many years and he was the coolest dude. And people like Reggie Miller of NBA fame, he's on TV 24/7 now. He loves cycling. And so I see him at races all the time. And I love the fact that you can sort of have those people in the zeitgeist of society that you actually kind of know. In a way, I'm not saying that these are my friends or this is not my friend group, but I do get to interact with these people, and that's extremely cool in some ways. Yeah. My dad and I had a long talk about hero worship and how as you get older, that becomes less and less. They always say, don't meet your hero. Well, that's not always true. And how you approach your hero might have a lot to do with how they respond to you, I think.
Interesting.
There's a thing going on in cycling right now where the biggest star of the sport, people call him the greatest ever, had a negative interaction with a fan who wanted a photo, and he was talking on his phone with his agent, and the fan got rude and then yelled at him and flipped him off and left. And then Towle, his name is Towle Podjakar, he put a post up about, hey, let's try to be more polite. If you want a selfie, I'll take one with you, but maybe you have to wait a second. That whole thing. Yeah. And I realized, well, Towle is a really great dude. He really is. And it's interesting how you can't expect to just walk up to someone like anyone, anywhere, and just say, hey, do this for me right now. It's like, who are you? Well, who are you? Why are you asking? A lot of things to process here right now. And then when you're talking about someone who's an elite star, a little graceful tact would go a long way. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really good point. And just perspective that, obviously that person didn't have, and maybe a lot of people listening just don't have that perspective. Yeah. It sounds like everyday sort of manners and respect, but you're right. Hero worship, right? You go into some different world, or you just have unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, focus on the fundamentals out there, maybe. For me too, though. Your point is really valid.
Yeah. Super interesting. All right. So we've gotten to 12 years old. We're in Boulder. We have a really awesome environment around you, and then some really influential people. Obviously, you have a passion for cycling that comes out of this, but tell us about some of your fondest memories, even just daily life. Like what were the sportsy activities, the peer group? What did life look like?
Yeah, so soccer was a huge part of my life. But my dad coached our team up until maybe he got out in front of his skis a little bit, and then you can coach them when they're 8, 9, and 10, but then the kids pretty quickly learn more than the parents, especially if they didn't traditionally play the sport, that kind of thing. But soccer was a huge part of my life. I really enjoyed that. Very normal childhood as far as it's the social structure that I had. I had 3 of the Albert twins and Pat Tully and Derek Ridge, and I had my friends. They're all, I shouldn't say they're all doing great, but life goes on. Most of them are doing really well. But that's the reality of being 60 too, is that we're not all still 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, it was a pretty normal suburban American lifestyle in a hip college town. University of Colorado in Boulder was starting to get its rhythm as a, I think it's perceived. That's one of the jokes that you really have to accept if you are from Boulder, is the national joke about how do you know somebody's from Boulder? And the answer is they tell you. right? And it's sort of like a vegan or other things. It's like they seem to talk about it a lot, don't they? But because they're proud. Yeah. Or they perceive that people think it has a cachet or it's hip, or that where you're from, maybe that's something I've learned in life, that where you're from is not who you are in any way. Or to, walk around with a Boulder sweatshirt, tell people you're the Boulder guy with the Colorado this and that. That's lame in my book. Boulder needs to be inside you. Or Boston or Seattle or whatever your place is. Like, personify it. Don't merch it would be my thing. But
cool.
But Boulder
I
was
like
just
that saying.
Yeah. But Boulder, keep Austin weird. You don't do that by wearing a Keep Austin Weird t-shirt, believe me. But
no.
Maybe even the joke is on me here, but anyways,
maybe you do. Maybe you do.
but no, I don't live in Boulder now. Fort Collins is also a college town. It's an hour and a half drive north-ish of Boulder, but it's a little more laid back, a little bit less of what I was just talking about. People here just seem to exist, but still, it's a nice place to be. That's for sure. I think most people recognize that Colorado's got it pretty good on the scale of things. I find myself living here for a reason. That's for sure. But just to wrap up, put a bow on your question there. Well, not the elephant in the corner of the room, but I was not a tremendous student, and I just was not dedicated to it, and I didn't. So I'm sure my parents will listen to this podcast. Most likely, they still follow what I do, and they know. So there's no secret here. But I was never able to identify good work habits as a student. I just didn't do it, and I really regret that. One of my biggest regrets is not taking Spanish in junior high and not being a better student in junior high and high school. I had my skills and I had the things I did okay, but I could have really polished up my resume quite a bit through that time and had a much different path. But that's just life's minor regrets, or that's just the way it goes. But my parents were both divorced at that point. They were living their own lives and hustling to stay alive. And, it was a dog-eat-dog world in Colorado in the late 70s, early 80s. It wasn't easy. I really want them to know that I know that. It was not easy. I have a wonderful sister, Kim, who's just the pride of the family. And I think she would agree that those times were not something that you certainly look back on with tremendous joy, but we survived, And I ended up finding my people. By the time I was 13, 14, I started working because I wanted money, and I was not going to get money from mom or dad. And so that meant the gym teacher in junior high had an Italian restaurant called Berardi and Sons. And I love your podcast now. I didn't know what we were going to do with this, but you got me thinking about a lot of things. So I started working at Berardi and Sons for $3.25 an hour. And it was a big ask because I would work Friday and Saturday nights, and I was only 14 or 15. And we wouldn't finish until 1 or 1:30 at night. And we would walk home across Boulder at that point. There's no way you'd ever let a kid do that today. But we would walk home 4.5 miles after working all night. But it was what we wanted to do. My friend Pat and I, we wanted to make money bad. And and we did not come from a place where we were getting an allowance. But where we grew up in Boulder, every other damn kid did, kind of, or it felt like they did. Right? They certainly had the shoes and the records and the stuff that we wanted. And I think maybe that impacted me for the rest of my life, is having that feeling like other people have things that you don't. You need to get those things, and the keeping up with the Joneses, and you have to get out of that rat race if you can. I'm still trying to. But anyways, those things from your childhood impact you throughout your whole life. But I did graduate from working as a dishwasher, and then became an expediter, helping, doing kitchen stuff, and worked my way up in the restaurant world until I realized I did not want to work in restaurants my whole life, and got a job at the bike shop. And then that was where they required you to kind of be legal. Like you needed to be, I think I might have squeezed in at 15 and a half on some fudged paperwork or that kind of thing. But that was where labor laws probably did apply, because, you could get hurt. Well, restaurants are a little different, aren't they? Or at least in the 80s or 70s. But so, worked at the bike shop, and that was it. My passion for cycling was locked in.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do just a little recap before we jump forward on that. So we covered as much as probably we will cover on school. You were surrounded by educators, right? You're from a family of educators, so I was going to ask you what school was like and how that influenced, your school life. And it wasn't the focus for you for whatever reason. You just didn't develop those habits in years that, as you look back, yeah, maybe you wish you did, but that's not how life took you. That's not the path you went. You started working really early. You saw things that other people had that you wanted, whether or not that came from, allowance that they had that you didn't, or however that came about. You saw that end goal that you wanted. You found a path there. And it sounds like, to be honest, you worked hard and excelled, right? Like you started at one level, you worked your way up, and sure, you said, I don't want to do this forever. But you must have been doing something right. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's not all W's. It's not all wins along the way. That's for sure. But I guess that would. I mean, if you want to talk about lessons learned, it definitely hard work pays off. Being prepared pays off. There's no question that. You reap what you sow. Right. That becomes pretty apparent.
Amazing. Okay, so that gets us through kind of ages 13, 14, and it sounds like 15, mid 15 and a half, you get to the bike shop. That's where you really realize. So is that where you really discovered cycling? Because of course you have the neighbor that has that influence already, but was it really just in the bike shop, or had you kind of been around it, seen it, heard it, bounced into it before then?
100% it was that neighbor, without any doubt at all. The bike shop was more fit who I thought I wanted to be, or right. I mean, this will kind of answer your question. It kind of won't. But if things had gone the way I wanted them to, I would have been a professional bike racer. It would have been that easy.
Yeah.
But bike racing is an extremely hard sport. It requires not only tremendous talent and the right DNA, but the other factor there is work ethic too. And those are three things that are hard to find in one person. And I don't know that I even had two of them. Work ethic you can build, right? DNA, you pretty much dealt that hand when you're born, right? And there's also another thing that actually, the one that I shouldn't discount, to be fair to the world and how I see myself, is that I had every opportunity. So, you can look at historically underserved communities. I was not that. I was an overserved community. I had access to the best bikes, the best coaching, the best everything. So I failed on my own, baby. That was all this guy, not lack of support. And there's so many people that have a valid claim there, really great athletes that just never got. So that being recognized, just wasn't a great athlete. But I knew that sorry, I never even thought about this, but it actually, the reason I became an announcer and doing commentary in the sport was just a continuation of being a bike mechanic. And I worked for this company in Seattle called Raleigh Bikes. From them, I went on and worked for a company called Shimano, which anybody who knows bikes would know both of those brands actually. But Shimano is huge. Shimano is the Nike of cycling, and fishing for that matter. It's a huge Japanese company. But so worked for them for a little while as well, but always as mechanic or in that realm. And I'm just not that great at that either. I'm not being tough on myself. It's just, let's be honest. We have skills, and some things we don't have skills in that area. And I am not in any shape or form. Like, since ChatGPT came along, I'm finally able to fix things like the latch in my VW or that kind. But before that, I really struggled. So I'm really happy that I was able. So because I was a bike mechanic and worked in bike shops and then started working for brands, but it was always sort of based on my people skills or personality, not my ability to actually fix bikes. It was my ability to talk about fixing bikes. that was, and there was some real shortcomings there that were, I'll be honest, completely embarrassing. I have a few moments that in my hard drive, deep in your brain, I think we all have that, of the 10 most embarrassing moments of your life, or the moments that if you could take them back or buy them back, Although it would end up changing the rest of your timeline.
Yeah.
Maybe be careful what you wish for.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because maybe that most embarrassing moment was the thing that turned the corner for you on. You changed your life at that point and said, I'm not going to look like a fool in front of people. And you became a better public speaker. Right? I get it.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. But definitely maybe 2 or 3 of those moments for me involve bike mechanic stuff. Just foolhardy Dave. And I'm glad that I can look back and not blame someone else or not give you a million excuses. I can just say I was not prepared. I was not ready for that moment, and I failed. And I hate failing. Yeah. So I even now forgot what your question was. That's okay. I was going to say that's a good motivation, is hating failing, right? And I would not put you in the position of asking you to list your 10 most embarrassing moments, as as curious as one might be. But but I was, you talked about it hasn't always been wins. You've talked very honestly that there were some fails. I do have a question, and you can come at it from wherever you'd like. Is just, what are some of the challenges that you did face in your profession? Whew. Yeah. So, wow. You know what? I mean, we said we're going to be honest here, right? And you asked about if there's anything I didn't want to talk about before the podcast, of being polite and understanding, right? But I just recently had someone on my podcast, and he, not casually, but mentioned the fact that he was an alcoholic and the impact that had on this or that. And for me, the biggest thing I'd like to change would be that. Like I am as well. And if I could go back on that time of when I had this amazing period where I had just really a lot of success. Things came really quickly and way too easily. 2003, 4, 5, I was getting jobs I didn't deserve. I was on the Today Show. I did all these things, right, that just kept feeding into whatever you're doing now, keep doing, because this is working.
Yes. Yeah.
And I didn't realize how wrong I was about that. And I let my addiction to alcohol run on too long. And I'm sober for quite a while now, but I always wonder what would have happened if I had been sober during that arc of my career. And so, that's by far my biggest regret. Well, and also the thing I'm the most proud of too. So it can be both for you, because I've had that discussion with plenty of other people who are recovering alcoholics, because I tell you, I am not someone who's going to be telling other people how to live their lives. I find it really hard. I might take someone aside and say, like, what I would do, to tell you the truth, is do what people didn't do for me. That was the hard part of it, with come up and say, dude, you shouldn't be announcing right now you're drinking, and that never happened. But at the end of my career, it could have, or end of that, my drinking career, I should say, it could have.
Yeah.
Right. And that would have been so humbling and sobering or scary for me, that someone noticed that was happening and felt enough to say it. That would have had my internal alarm bells going off. And I wish that someone would have, but I don't blame them. But that's almost where I'm at with, I have a colleague and I know that they're struggling like that. And this isn't just a one-off thing. Yeah. Then I might be someone to say, look, this is going to be a really painful conversation, and you're probably going to be mad at me and maybe not want to talk to me anymore. But I think you want to hear this. I think 5 years from now, you'll thank me.
Yes.
So, but
that's
these
really,
are the things. You live life, right?
Yeah. It's really powerful, and it's there's so much learning there. There's so much acceptance. Like, there's so much that you said it. If you changed any one of those moments in the past, what would life look like now? Would you make that change if it completely changed what life's like? Most people that I talk to wouldn't, but that's something you get to answer for yourself. You don't have to answer for us. Right. But it's a journey. It's a journey.
And now for a word from our sponsors. Ready to share your stories and life philosophy, or capture those of a parent or grandparent? Or maybe a corporate package is right for you to build connection across your workforce and add value to your clients. Visit audiolife.io today to learn more. Our listeners will get 10% off using discount code GIFT10 and order number AudioLife Podcast. AudioLife, where memories find their voice.
I was going to ask, so you did talk about, we've gotten real and honest and talked about challenges. I always like to give people a chance to talk about highlights, and you've had lots of them in your career. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of those?
Yeah. Boy, it's interesting. It's probably going to be, I'll keep it brief because I think you'd have to be a cycling person to get it. But I'll give you some context then, because the very highest level of our sport outside of the Olympics, and it's even arguable that the World Championships is a bigger deal than the Olympics. It's actually, the Olympics are the biggest deal, but World Championships are a huge deal in a lot of sports, and cycling, it's particularly important. You get to wear this cool jersey and a lot goes around it, a lot of energy. And I, had a goal of wanting to announce at that event, the World Championships, and I did. I met that goal, which was huge. And there's a lot of politics behind it. There's a lot of things that it's not just who's the best bike race announcer, if you get what I'm saying. It's more like who's the best bike race announcer that's connected, that didn't piss off this guy, that, all of those things. And so that was a huge, threading that needle was a big one for me. And then another one was and this it really requires context, but I think people will get it. The holy grail, the Lambeau field of cycling is this cycling track in Ghent, Belgium. It's in this park called the Citadel Park. It's as historic as you could possibly imagine. And that velodrome is the epicenter of the sport's core essence. This is like where Christ was born in Jerusalem for cycling, kind of. And I'm the only American, anybody you meet in Belgium these days speaks English, pretty much, or Holland, or more or less. So these announcers have announced in English now for decades, while they're also doing it in Flemish. But I was the first ever non-Belgian or Dutch person to announce in that velodrome, the holy grail of bike race announcing. And that was and also I went there as a kid to that very track. And when I was 17 years old, with that neighbor, we took a trip to Europe, kind of thing. And to be back there, getting to be on the microphone, and it was as big a deal today as it was in 1984. So those were the things that stay with me for sure. I would say that I announced every single Amgen Tour of California, the start and the finish of 14 years of that event. And I've done all the big American races like the USA Pro Challenge, Tour de Georgia, Tour of Missouri, all of those. But again, got to put things in context. Those races are all now gone. And I do a lot of gravel stuff, and that's where we have a mutual friend, Joe Marks, and his brother runs one of the biggest, they don't call it gravel racing in the Belgian waffle rides case. It's on-road racing, but it's a really big deal. And it brings together a whole bunch of riders from different disciplines of cycling. You'll have triathletes racing against mountain bikers and against road cyclists, and it's fun and it's cool. And that's more what I do these days is public speaking at events that have generally, between 500 and 5,000 participants. Almost always they're on a bicycle. And it's a niche thing, but it's funny how you learn the language of that tribe and you become a recognizable voice for the people. And it's not a bad living. It's not really lucrative, but it's fun. I travel to cool places. I'm around energetic, positive people for the most part. I definitely am in a sweet spot in my life where both of my parents are still alive and my family's healthy and doing well. And tough times in America for a lot of people. I get it. And I'm one that is very grateful that I'm not having those particular personal tough times right now. I'm just trying to work hard and keep my head down.
Yeah, really good perspective. I like that you brought it back to family. I do want to pause there for a minute. I'll just mention, so you mentioned Joe Marks, Michael, we can say Michael Marks. Michael Marks has been on the podcast, so you can go back and listen to his
great.
Podcast. Yeah. So he has a TEDx. He has a long marketing history. So you'll hear about that. You won't hear as much about cycling, but it is 100%
He's a
core to
genius.
his life and his work. Yeah, he is.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, Joe is as well. I just happen to know Michael a little bit better, but Michael is, and I mean this, the brightest marketer that I have ever been around. He does some really fun stuff, but when push comes to shove, he's a heavyweight marketer. So, yeah.
Yes, he is. Yes,
I'm glad you had him on the show. I'm going to go listen to that episode.
Yeah. He was one of our very early guests. And then we did a New Year's show, and I got to bring back, just some of our, we don't like to pick favorites, but we got to bring back some people that we just wanted to do a New Year's thing with, reflections on the year, hopes for the next year. So he came back and did that. He was also one of my first on the New Year's show, and it was like just super fun, just kind of 15 minutes, 15 questions, bam, bam, bam. So yeah.
You are amazing. I really feel like this is a huge challenge because with my podcast, every guest, I just realized I've had 30 episodes, and I know personally, like they're in your phone, not saying we're best friends again, but I know them.
Yeah.
And so that's really different than what you're like. We had never met before we started this call.
Yes.
And I realized you do a really great job of figuring a person out. And yeah, I mean, I always can be a little bit, I don't know, not standoffish, or prickly, but it's always just a little bit weird when someone's asking you about you, right? And I feel like you've really mastered that art.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way. That's awesome for you to say. So listen, and honestly, sometimes I get to know people ahead of time. Sometimes I read their books. Sometimes they're old friends. But it's cool to meet somebody and really dig in for the first time for the podcast. So thank you for indulging us.
You're almost like a therapist in a way for me. Like getting me to open up.
Well, okay.
Yeah, like
yeah.
And you definitely see within 5 minutes, I think, with people too, you kind of make a decision on how much you're going to invest of yourself in this, right? Like, am I really going to tell these people that I'm an alcoholic? It's going to be, it takes a little bit to build up that trust. So it's an art form for sure.
And I mean, yeah.
But you could say that this
awesome.
right here, the art of conversation, in particular with people that you aren't familiar with, is something that we should all take a good look at. The social network around you. Can you just sit down with someone you've never met before and have a kind, friendly conversation for an hour? Challenge yourself. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. I hope people can. I love that challenge. I love that coming from you, and I love it for our podcast. Because I don't know what you're like. We've heard about your life. I don't know how you get to what the training is to get to have your job. But there wasn't a course I took to do this, right?
I mean, that's a fantastic question, and I've had, because it looks cool from the outside when you go to the event. And that's what happened to me. I went to these mountain bike races when I was working for Shimano, and I was like, that guy doing the announcing, I just watched someone go up and give him a free pair of shoes. Someone, like I'm not even kidding. Like there actually were a free pair of shoes involved in this whole crazy Dave Towle mind.
I believe you.
But I'm just thinking to myself, and then I noticed something, because I'd be at these races all day long in the tent and just listening to what they were saying and just the vibe and talking to people and stuff. But you hear them all day, the two announcer guys. One of them, Chris, I never really knew him, but he had a huge impact on me because I noticed what he did. And I do it I don't do it nonstop because I try to understand how the ebb and the flow of announcing works, and you have to have crescendos, but you have to build the base and the whole thing. So I learned from him, though, and when he would do it to me, when he'd say like, "Oh yeah, and if you haven't gone by, go say hi to Shimano Dave. He's the coolest guy." And that right there, that him saying that I was the coolest guy, I felt like the whole world heard that in that moment, it's like, right on, Chris, thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. And it is so good for your inner, not only your ego, but just your outlook on things. And I recognize that you can do that for almost anybody. And if you do it without being phony or sarcastic, or, if you do it with genuine I care about people.
Yeah.
I like to see people happy.
Yeah.
I want people to feel good about themselves. There's few ways that you can do that, shouting them out or trying to turn around a bad moment. And there's times when if someone crashes on their bike right in front of you and it's an embarrassing moment for them, how about you shut up, right? Like they're in a bad enough place. The last thing they need, the complete opposite of what I was talking about, of making people feel great, is pile on, throw salt in the wound and make them feel worse about that moment. Heck no. That's not who I want to be, right? And so I recognize that power, had fun with that, and that's been probably the secret to my success. Like that was that, the ability to make people feel good. And it has a ripple effect too, because people know like, oh, if he's saying nice things about that guy, and that's positive, they feel better, and it builds on itself.
For sure. Very cool. Okay. Before we end with a little bit of, we've done some lessons learned. We end with a little bit of kind of life philosophy. Before we get there, I want to bring it back to family, because you've brought it back to family. We heard a little bit about your parents. We heard briefly about your sister, Kim, who you kind of said, had all of the family pride. Is it just one sibling to start with?
Yeah. Just her.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the dynamic between you and your sister and you seeing her succeed?
Yeah, I guess the great thing there is there's very little to say. I love her. I know that she loves me. We communicate, and sure, my niece and my nephew are now, my niece is getting married in March, and they're both, I don't want to brag or boast, but they're doing really well.
You can.
They're rock star people. And yeah, it's really nice to be able to see like my dad and his partner Sid, or my mom and her partner. They're so proud of that generation now. And I'm realizing they're, probably not that far from becoming great grandparents. And so that whole thing is extremely nice to see. But yeah, Kim isn't a flashy person, or there's not a lot that she doesn't bring attention to herself. She quietly just did a bang up job raising those two kids, while her husband did an amazing job keeping that family going, and they're still going just fine. So yeah, it's weird how sometimes less is more. And in this would be the perfect case, is that I don't have a bad word to say about her. Well, why would I, right? But also it's just nice to have regular people in your life. That's what Kim is for me.
Beautiful. Very, very nice. And we haven't talked about kind of significant relationships in your life. Have there been people that you want to highlight?
Divorced. I met my wife, ex-wife, in Ireland when I was announcing the tour of Ireland. And so lived over in Cork for a while. Oddly, I don't think many Americans are very hip to, so Dublin is obviously what most people think of, and then Belfast because of the troubles and all of that. And then a lot of people have flown through Shannon Airport, and there's all the weird things like Limerick that you've heard of because it's associated with something, or shillelagh, or all of these Irishy things. But my ex worked for Fáilte Ireland, which is still the Irish Tourism Board. And we met at the race because she was working they were sponsor of and Lance Armstrong came over and raced when he made his comeback. And it was a big deal. And so, she's a great person. Still, I tell you, that challenge of two adults living in different, and she got a green card and moved to America. And I won't go too much more into that. That's her business. But it just didn't work out to live the lives that we were needed to live that way, I guess is the best way to put it. Yeah. I missed a lot of things. I had a trip scheduled to go to Ireland right now, actually. And I was noticing, because of some of my travel alerts were coming up, because my Google didn't know that I canceled the trip. Yep. But it was telling me that it would have been a tough time, because the weather right now on the East Coast is apparently really rough. Would not have been a great day to fly through Boston to Dublin. That's for sure. So maybe I caught a break there. But I have a lot of fond memories. I did 3 different years of that event, and then 5-ish years of time there, and it's a special place for sure.
Yeah.
And, but I hate to say it, and this would be the reality sandwich, I guess, that I'm not a person that's cut out to be married. I don't travel as much. We had talked a little bit before the show about working for Zwift and COVID, and I did a ton of commentary from right here in this seat. We would do 10, 12 hours of esports commentary. It wasn't always that, but there were times when we worked our asses off doing esports, and Zwift was the best thing that ever happened to me as far as a professional job. They provided so much. I love Zwift, really do. Great company. Cool. And I wish I still did more with them, to tell you the truth. But that being said, I traveled so much. I still do. But at a time, like if you go back 15 years ago, I was on the road 140 to 160 days a year. So that's basically one day gone for every day you're home. But you block it out in this weird way. The 4-day trip here, 11-day trip here, and then 2-day trip, 2-day trip, 2-day. It's tough. Well, it's not that tough if you're a single, selfish, relatively financially stable man. And I think every one of those things makes a difference in that. I mean, I do things when I travel that I don't know. It would be great for a 28-year-old woman to be alone at night in this or that place. But as me, no one cares, right? And all of these things, like I have enough money that I can do this in a safe way. And I have enough work that it makes sense. And I'm really lucky to have all of that. But the most important thing and I truly like this podcast made me a little uncomfortable because I felt like if you look at in my friend chat groups, I call people a narcissist all the time. Like it's something that I call out maybe, world figures and stuff, but I use that term a lot, and I hate to be hypocritical. Yeah. Right. And this whole conversation, you could say what that was a study in your own narcissism, Dave. It was an hour of you asking someone to ask you questions about you. What do you think that was? But that's not, I think you'd agree with me that that's not fair to me in this case. But
that's not fair.
Right. But that being said, I really don't like to, you get it, I think, right? Talking about yourself, I want to be careful on recognizing shortcomings and like, this guy must think he's something special. And I don't. I think I have a skill. That's the best way to put it, right? Yeah. And I'm proud of that.
Yeah. I'll say, you said that you said during school you didn't sort of figure out the kind of the formula, the work habits. In everything we've talked about, whether you've reverse engineered it or you figured it out ahead of time, I guess you reverse engineered a lot of it. You've figured out the boxes that need to be checked and whether you check them, right? That's what we've done. And you have some that you didn't check all the boxes or you didn't check enough. This one, you have a unique experience, you have a unique background, you check a lot of the boxes, right? You check enough of them to have done it really well on a world stage, on an international stage. And that's part of what people want to understand in our conversation, right? We're not just sitting here saying Dave is so great at everything, but they're saying like, how did he get to do what he's doing? Could I follow in those footsteps? Is it a path I can do? What did he learn along the way? Do I want to be like, is he even happy at the end of it, right? You talked about, and we'll come back to the trying to get out of the rat race. Like, let's be real about what it takes to have that level of success and where it ends up. And whether you want where it ends up, right?
Yeah, and
if you're game.
No, totally, completely. I really enjoyed. I mean, in all honesty, I can't wait to go listen to a lot more of your conversations with people with the way that you approach things. And I'm game.
Yeah, awesome. So let's shift into kind of our last segment, and we really are doing some reflection in this segment. So I'm going to ask you how you define success. And I think I'm also going to ask you how you feel you've achieved it, even though we kind of touched on that. But like, it may not be the classic term. It may not be what people expect. So how do you define success? And today, where are you achieving that?
Wow. Yeah. Success is being comfortable with who you are, proud of what you do, having a peer group that respects you, having enough money to be able to live a comfortable life that is reasonable. Anything more than that is excess, and I won't judge on that. But you don't need as much as maybe you think that you need, as long as you have the important things. And yeah, success is having a plan for the future, but not being completely locked in on that plan, being flexible, but also not just taking things minute by minute. And I think you've talked a lot about family, and so have I here. And I think that that's something that, to be completely honest, I wasn't always successful with either. And I wonder if the alcoholism has anything to do with it, right? Because about the same time that I started taking responsibility for myself, my relationship with everybody in my family improved too. And I stopped leaning on my sister for things that were absurd. So that's one that, I guess I can check that box, but it's in pencil. No, it's in pen. It's in pen now, but it was in pencil at one point. But I mean, that's a long answer and maybe a little too in depth.
That's a great answer.
But I mean, at the end of the day, those fundamental things, like try to make your parents proud. Or if you don't have parents, try to make the people around you that you respect proud. That right there might be close to enough.
Yeah, I mean, you used this wording earlier, right? And it's who do you want to be, or who do you want to show up as, right? So it's not necessarily like, how do I make my parent proud? Maybe I don't have that parent. Maybe they're not going to be proud, but it's that recognition of trying to achieve what you. Yeah, I think there's a lot of power in what you shared.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, and that's one of these things that I don't wish tough times on anyone, but if you've been unfortunate enough to really hit that. I mean, again, alcoholism really helps amplify your problems. And if you've had a chance to hit rock bottom, or it's happened to you in other elements, other theaters of your life, relationships or job stuff, or things can get heavy and depressing. And I always think, like, how would I have responded at my low point if someone had come up to me? But you know what? This is perfect for this show, actually, because I remember exactly that low point. I'm going to be private enough to not really go into it, but I know when that low point happened. And I remember exactly the person that was there for me in that moment. And I even remember exactly what he said that I've tried to echo. It always seems to come out not quite right when I use what he said to me with them. Or maybe it does and I don't see it in the moment because it's not immediate. But the thing that he said to me was, we went to get coffee and I went to pay for it. And it was the last $10 I had. Like the last cash I had. I was going to have to really start breaking open piggy banks or something at that point. And it's just 2 days before Thanksgiving too. And he's like, I'll put your money away. I'll take care of that. And I thought, oh, wow. It's like even something little like that matters to me right now. That's how pathetic I am. And so we sat down and he said, you know what? I'll summarize it, but basically I can tell you're having a tough time. Everybody can around you. And, people are pulling for you, he said. And that made me feel good. And then he said, all you need is just to catch a break. You just need to catch a break and it's going to come. And I know that made me think at the time, well, he's a smart guy. He's a really great business and, he's not bullshitting me. I just need to catch a break. And that gave me the hope that I needed at that time.
Yes.
If he thinks I'm going to catch a break, maybe I will catch a break. And it's funny. I don't even know exactly. There was no, and then the break happened and the clouds cleared and the harp started playing. That didn't happen. But my mindset shifted at that point. And that was everything. And so that would be, for someone who's in that situation where you think there's not much left here. We're at the end of this run and I don't really see why I'd want to continue to go on. It's like, I wish they could have that conversation with Doug because it made a huge difference. Yeah. It really did.
Yeah.
So, and that must be that's something I've never really taken advantage of. But what therapy or these kind of conversations are for in the greater purpose of life is to get you to turn your mindset around and find positivity. And therapy would be that, but most people can't afford it or don't have access to it or aren't going.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting that's where I'm going to ask the next question as I had it. So it's interesting that you segued us there, because my next question is, how do you nurture mental and emotional well-being?
Yeah. Exercise, walking, honestly, number one with that. And that is another one of those things when you're like, what all happened in that time when things got better? Because it's good to know. And I started listening to podcasts, shout out to you, and walking. And there's only one other podcast that I listened to then that I still listen to. But there's no doubt that was transformational. And it wasn't necessarily the steps, it was getting outside of my own space, getting outside of that stupid apartment and fresh air. Yeah. The whole kit and caboodle, as they say. There, right? But it's not, obviously that is one ingredient, but I think it was the one that was the most, quitting drinking is clearly the most effective thing you could do for your health. But other than that, more subtle things, the walking. Yeah. And there's an element of, and I'm not joking with the podcast, that gets you thinking. It's almost like having a conversation, even though you're not really talking. But it does make you think, what do I think about that? And that's healthy, for sure.
Yeah. I love keeping it at just walking and podcasting. But, I'm imagining that fresh air. I'm imagining a little bit of exercise in there. Maybe given your environment, maybe some nature is coming in, hearing some different perspectives. It's just kind of engaging your mind while you're physically moving, right? Getting all those good pieces working together.
Absolutely.
Getting out of your environment, right? Getting out of the box of whether it's an apartment, a bedroom, a living, wherever, your office, wherever it is that you've boxed yourself in, right?
Yeah.
Just getting out of there. Yeah. All right. So getting to our last one or two questions for today. I don't know if this one sounds like a big question or not, but what would you like your legacy to be and why?
Yeah. I've thought about that a lot. I remember when I was at the University of Colorado as a freshman, and I was in a room with a bunch of people I didn't really know. And I left the room, and then I didn't do it intentionally. I can't remember the exact dynamics, but for some reason, I ended up hearing what they said about me right after I left. I think I left the room, and for some reason, I for whatever reason, that's what happened. And one of the guys was like, he's a cool dude. And someone else agreed. And I thought, oh man, that feels so good. Like that's people's perception of you, was that you were cool. And in all honesty, in no category, in no metric that we're scoring human beings, am I going to be a world champion or even a national champion or state or regional champion. That's not my mindset. They say, I kind of alluded to this at the very beginning of this podcast, but it's what they say about my dad's dad, is that, I don't know, I don't really know that much about him, but he seemed like he was generally well-liked. He was a nice guy. And not everybody's going to say that about me. I get it. And they have every reason. They have their reasons, for sure. But that's what, nothing more or less than that, is I'd like people to think, like, in general, he was a good-spirited, kind person, cared about others, a good man. That would be it. If that's what it said on my tombstone, he was a good man. That'd be enough.
Yeah, I love that, and I think that's something to be proud of. That's a very cool way to end. So you came in with no expectations. You came in kind of doing someone a favor. Now that we've had this conversation, is there anything that I haven't covered that you do want to share?
Yeah, I can honestly say no. Thank you so much for being thorough and doing your homework. And it was a really cool experience. I came on, as you mentioned, friend of friends, and I had been working on my own podcast. And one of the things that they talk about, and actually many reasons I'm glad I came on, I got to experience, I've been sending out dozens and dozens of invites for Riverside, but I've never actually received one. So I got to see what it's like from the perspective of the guest. So that was cool. I also learned a few things about professionalism from you that I'll take note of and be able to integrate into my life. And that's extremely cool as well. You're always learning. That's really important to me now. And that's another one of these things that I feel so weird giving lessons to people when I'm the one who, is only recently learning these lessons. But it definitely, being prepared before you show up and being on time, these are also simple, but always trying to, if you're going to have an hour with someone, figure out something that they do better than you and try to move that into your life. And there's a couple things I've noticed with your skills with podcasting that I will try to integrate into what I'm doing. So it was well worth my time. I learned a lot and I enjoyed meeting you.
Amazing. I am so glad that you took the time. I really enjoyed getting to know you and having the conversation today. I enjoyed learning from you and letting our listeners learn from you. I know for your legacy, it's important that you're a good guy, that you're a cool guy. I think you're a pretty cool guy. So if that and this podcast goes toward your legacy, I hope that's a great thing.
Right back at you. Thank you, though. That's very kind.
Awesome. Yeah. And for everyone who's been listening to us today, this has been another episode of the AudioLife Memoirs podcast. This is where we tell your story in your voice. And today I've been talking to David Towle. It's Carrie Purcell again, your host. And if you like what you heard today, please don't forget to rate our show. It helps others find us, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'll be back in a couple weeks with another story for you.
If you like what you heard today, consider recording your own AudioLife private podcast or giving one to a loved one for a unique and memorable gift. Today, AudioLife listeners will receive 10% off using discount code GIFT10 and order number AudioLife Podcast. Also, remember to rate our show and subscribe so you'll never miss an episode.